What's going on, guys? Nick Hellman here, aka the Crypto Hitman, and we're doing a quick recorded video, just kind of a market update. What's going on with PulseChain as we see more red candles. But some of our favorite altcoins on PulseChain are trying to hang in there, and we're trying to solidify our gains while they're producing us passive income as we wait for something to happen with Ethereum and something to happen with PulseChain. With me today, I have Coach X, probably a familiar face for most of you. Been on the show a couple times, integral part, OG of PTGC, founder of X Protocol, really doing a lot over on PulseChain. So kind of our inside guy on what is going on there. And should we still be optimistic on the upside potential of PulseChain, or should we just move on?
Well, of course, you're going to be optimistic down at these levels and opportunity zones, I like to call them. And even if there's whales selling at these lows, just think about the bigger picture. They were going to be essentially selling at some point in time in the bull market cycle. And if they're selling at these lows, good for you.
Yeah,
So,
I all over my Twitter feed there was somebody doing, data analysis, on-chain analysis, and there's a big whale that's been swapping for PLS and bridging to ETH and then selling over there, and everybody's in a hoopla over it. And yes, it's sending PLS price lower, but like you said, Ethereum's still not doing anything. And yet the narrative
mhm.
for ETH is starting to heat up, and we'll talk about that later. But Ethereum's not doing anything. This whale is selling out, creating lows here for PLS, but PLS still at a higher low, and if you want to get them out here, that means that's that much less selling pressure on the way up. So the next 50% rally, this guy was going to sell anyways. So if he wants to keep unloading the bag down here, whether he brings the funds back on chain or not, it's much better to get these whales out at lower valuations, where it'll have a less impact on killing momentum. And the last thing we want is Ethereum finally to go, marketing finally to go, momentum finally to build, and then the whale is just dumping on the first 1x or 2x on chain.
And then kind of also just thinking about it in the bigger picture of the whole market in general is there's a lot of talks of POW getting replaced. We're possibly going to be doing some kind of rate cuts, and the Trump administration has been really pushing all these type of things, even coming out with other countries with saying they have this much interest rates about I don't know, 10 to 15 other countries, and they're like, you're making the United States, the citizens, losing billions of dollars, and you actually can see the inflation of the U.S. economy. Egg prices are down, gas prices are down, with all these interest rates this high, and you just have to anticipate that I don't know, a lot is probably going to be happening with crypto, with Bitcoin, with Ethereum. And if you would just open your eyes and listen closely, you would see opportunity, especially here on PulseChain with the marketing campaign, or the looking at Ethereum in comparison with the liquidity pool with Pulse, and you can imagine what kind of opportunity that we hold here on chain.
Yeah, we've talked about a lot of these things. Essentially, we think quantitative easing is coming. The market thinks 2 to 3 rate cuts are coming by the end of the year. You have a potential Bitcoin super cycle with all these institutions coming into play. And for the past few weeks, I've been talking about Ethereum Strategic Reserve being the next narrative that drives this market and can really send altcoins higher. And since then, what have we seen? We've seen Coinbase buying more Ethereum. We've seen the PulseChain Sacrifice wallet get listed on the Ethereum Strategic Reserve page. Now we see Starlink Gaming that has almost 200,000 ETH that they've bought up in the past couple weeks, a publicly traded company. And then yesterday, Tom Lee is going to be on the board of a reputable Bitcoin mining company. They mine Bitcoin for revenue and for shareholders' value, yet they're going to buy 250 million worth of ETH as a start to their Ethereum strategic reserve. The narrative is starting to switch. People understand that Ethereum could be the next big thing. It will be able to drive yield for shareholder value, and you can utilize DeFi in order to generate yield to buy more Ethereum and bolster your strategic reserve, something that really isn't available for the Bitcoin strategic reserve. And although a lot of companies and institutions and governments are still trying to figure out ways to buy Bitcoin, this is what has sent us above 100,000 on Bitcoin. And if the same narrative holds true for Ethereum and people start doing this, companies are doing this, and this starts to snowball, well, you can expect Ethereum to go much higher. Now, how does that affect PulseChain? We said it a dozen times. Number one, PulseChain Sack Wallet holds like 166,000 ETH worth hundreds of millions of dollars. There's liquidity bonding with PLS and EHEX over on Ethereum, which helps drag price higher. And then also, PulseChain is a EVM compatible layer one, which means that if people on Ethereum are making money, it is very easy for them to bridge over into the PulseChain ecosystem and get involved in that thriving DeFi ecosystem as well. So I just think there's a lot of things going, and yes, the risk is high on PulseChain. You have to admit that, but you have tons of SAC wallets. You have Richard Hart, who is starting to get more freedom of speech, not fully freedom of speech, and hopefully gets freedom of movement once the Interpol closes. And I've said it a million times, but this is the risk to reward ratio for this cycle. And I would change my tune if Ethereum was $4,000, $5,000, $10,000, and PLS is still going to new all-time lows, then yes, I'd be changing my tune. But right now, no alts are doing well. No layer ones, no layer twos are doing well. Ethereum is floundering at 2,400, even though it has hundreds of millions of buys. Retail demand is not here yet, and that is what we're holding on for. That's why we try to do these videos to keep you guys convicted, try to get you guys into some of our favorite altcoin plays over on PulseChain, get involved with the blue chips on PulseChain, and get along for the ride. Is there a risk? Yes, but could your reward be much greater in PulseChain than that of buying Ethereum or buying BNB, as those are second, third, fourth cycle tokens, while PulseChain and the PulseChain network is still a first cycle network in protocol.
And you kind of like highlight like trying to just keep on that positive mindset, just looking like outside the box, inside the box, and just know that July 6th is where the SEC, the 30-day after the dismissal, not the dismissal, but beating the SEC from the judgment of the judge with Richard Hart when it comes to PulseChain, Hex, and PulseX, that's actually coming in about 6 days, and the opportunity presents itself. Richard R. Hart even talking about having millions of some kind of marketing or mail or that might go out to millions of people around the world, and actually trying to get the community to talk about or not talk about, but to do like nonprofits to actually get these mailers out into the world. And once you start thinking about those type of things as well, it's like the potential of the altcoins like PTGC, like UFO, like X, like Surf has so many different opportunities for the future. And the understanding over here on PulseChain is so much deeper depth conviction, because the people are educated, the people understand, people look at the different kind of liquidity pools as opportunities. Because if you look back in history, when PulseChain actually did a 5x, PTGC did a 44x, and that only had about 2,000 to 3,000 holders. Currently, right now, PTGC has 15,000 holders. And we're at the all-time lows, and we actually already went to a market cap of $320 million market cap. And if you actually think about the next leg up with the liquidity 15x lower here on PulseChain with Pulse, PulseX, PHEX, EHEX, Inc., the opportunities is just going to be not laughable, but just like mind-numbing, because people really don't really understand the opportunities that PulseChain has being gatekept, not on centralized exchanges. And if you really think about it, too, talking about like the Bitcoin conference, the people are talking a lot of the phrase, not your keys, not your coins, is a talking point of the past. And they want to actually essentially control people's Bitcoin, control people's Ethereum. And PulseChain is that chain where it gives you opportunity to become your own bank once you dive in deep and educate yourself for the opportunities of the future. Nick, what's your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, that's why I'm here. And it's not fun when you look at these tickers and you're like, oh, off the all-time
Mm,
lows, PLS is only up 5% off the all-time lows. PLSX is up double, INC is up triple, Hex is up 59%. And you're like, oh man, this thing's been out for a few years and that's all the gains you got. But you can look at it that way, or you can look at it as opportunity. Because you've already mentioned a couple. Surf is up from 11K to 3.5 million and is sitting at like 1.6 million while PLS is down and to the right. PTGC
hmm
went into the top 200 assets, 350 million all-time high, sitting at 80 million right now on a discount with PLS down and to the right. X
Mm-hmm.
Protocol went up to like 15 million and now it's down to 2 point something million dollars.
10.5 million.
10.5 million. Now it's at 2
It's all
million
right.
with PLS down and to the right.
Yeah.
So that means that the token economics and the utilities within some of these altcoins are deflationary, provide incentives for holders, and are surviving even though the underlying blue chips are down and to the right. When these blue chips go up and to the right, it supercharges the LP pools that these tokens have. It supercharges the token utilities and the token economics that these projects have. And that's why they outperform on the upside. This is an opportunity for whether you're a builder, you're going to launch a new project, current project founders, or a community member. This is opportunity. If you're going to be a builder, you get the opportunity to launch an LP bond with these blue chips at near all-time low levels. If you already have a project, now is an opportunity to deploy extra funds to thicken up your LP pools at these levels because inevitably when this runs, that means you're going to have massive LP pools drawing in AMM bots, drawing in arbitrage traders, providing an outlet for whales, and going to bolster your own price performance. And if you're an investor and a speculator, you can look at these as opportunities. You're getting some of the cheapest possible PLS ever to buy. You're going to get in cheaper than people who sacrificed to PLS 3 years ago. You can buy it now 5% off the all-time low. That's the opportunity with PulseChain. I'm not saying you got to full-fledged your whole full port your whole portfolio into PulseChain, but if you don't want to dip your toes in the water now and you want to wait for green candles, you're going to be missing out on massive opportunities. Now, altcoins in all sectors are down 80%, 70%, 90%. People are giving up. Bitcoin dominance has eaten up all the price performance. So you can find opportunity in those large caps as well, but here you can get cycle one narrative with the speculation of 166,000 ETH, with speculation of a Chad and Richard Hart, with speculation upside possibility of layer ones in cycle one. What have they done? Look at what Ethereum did cycle one. Look at what BNB did cycle one. Look what ADA did cycle one. Polygon. The list goes on and on. Pulse Chain shouldn't be any different, and I don't think Pulse Chain will be any different. That's why I think you're staring at a massive opportunity. And even some of our favorite altcoins that we talk about, PTGC, X, Surf, your mom's starting to get talked about out there, UFOs talked about out there. You're getting 40%, 50% discounts off the all-time highs, and nothing's changed. Token economics are the same, lock liquidity is the same, burnt liquidity is the same, incentives for holding is the same. The only thing that's changed is it's harder to onboard people to red candles that we're seeing from all these blue chips, but also all these blue chips are dragging down all the LP pairs of those altcoins because the altcoins are trying to battle against the network rather than work with the network. Once we see Ethereum go up 3,000, 4,000, Pulse Chain is going to follow and is going to outperform, in my opinion.
Well, kind of like add to that, like where you're like talking about like the builders, you know, like when it comes to like X protocol, we just kind of like launched our beta with the a sniper swap, and the cool thing about this, it's beta version, and currently right now, we it gives us opportunity to make everything that much more effective. And it's just working out all the bugs, and then also it does present different kind of opportunity to think about like where could we actually utilize some of these the fees, like maybe potentially goes to a barn burn of what I like to call one of my favorite or my favorite projects on PulseChain. My oldest son. I like my oldest son. I like buying and burning my oldest son. But uh, and thinking about that too, it's just building things and building tools for the future of PulseChain. Once we actually get that adoption, once we get that volume, once we give the degens a fun playground and opportunity to just move forward, and then also educate them as much as possible to know like this might be a once in a lifetime opportunity, especially when it comes to PGC, especially when it comes to UFO, especially when it comes to X, and then also the opportunity and thought process of like Surf, because everything is connected together. And like Hart's law is a fact. Hart's law is a thing that you and I have been talking about from the beginning of PulseChain, and looking at the potential of what we can see with PGC some of the numbers is going to be mind-numbing, in my personal opinion. So, what do you think about all of those type of things of builders getting the opportunity to build different kind of protocols or dApps or
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is when I was on the 4 hour, it looks like, oh man, this chart really sold off. I don't know if I want to get involved. Yes, it's putting in higher lows, but I don't know. But when you take it to the daily and you zoom out a little bit and you see the upside, yes, there's been a drawdown, but look where you started. This blip right here looked like this. This was a massive euphoric rally and then a consolidation period, a sell-off, and then what do you know, an absolute explosion when PulseChain started to have another run. And this actually topped 2 months after Bitcoin, Ethereum, and PulseChain topped, which is pretty
hmm
interesting. And that's because why? Because the token economics that are in play, the DAO was getting funds and choosing to do LP ads, buybacks and burns of PTGC, and using those funds to enhance and incentivize PTGC holders. So that is the opportunity here. That's why these kind of token utilities work. Is this thing can continue running while the general market goes sideways or down, just because it does have built up funds that can be used for buybacks and burns, LP ads, marketing, or whatever the DAO votes on. So I think when I zoom out here, that's where you see the opportunity. You're coming back down into major support. You continue to put in higher lows, even though PLS is literally at all-time lows. That would be equivalent to PTGC going all the way back down here, sub $1 million market cap. Currently still at a $71 million market cap when retail on the overall market is dead, and the retail on PulseChain is even thinner than that of Ethereum, of course, or Solana or BNB, because they're multi-cycle tokens, which means they've had 3 years, 4 years, 10 years to build up users, to build up wallet holders that can actually participate in these active markets. So, nothing changes for me. PTGC is still, the king of this network, the index token of PulseChain. And like you said, a lot of builders are trying to incorporate ways to be benevolent to PTGC. Well, why is that? Number one, we have bags of PTGC, so we want it to pump. But number two, we know that tying to PTGC puts us in good hands because we believe that PTGC is going to be an amplifier or exponential gains on top of the blue chips of PulseChain that we're also rooting for. And I guess that's where X Protocol comes in. I was showing your Twitter over there. I'll show your chart. This is what we were talking about, guys. This thing essentially started at $5,000 market cap, went to 10 million, sold off with the general market. Looks a lot like PTGC. Why? Because LP bonding. Looks a lot like the blue chips. Why? Because LP bonding. So, but it's doing the same thing here. Big drop off, but it's continuing to put in higher lows and holding this uptrend line and waiting and seeing for Ethereum and PulseChain to make it easier to try to no longer have to swim up current, but be able to ride a boat down current when things get a little better.
Well, and then if you actually look at the pulse side of X or the pulse side of PGC, you can actually see a different kind of message and different kind of story of like what is happening with the overall consensus of the holders or the overall consensus of opportunity, and just know like even with these down pressures of pulse, down pressures of PHEX or PulseX currently in the market, it's like the chart always speaks louder than like people crying on Twitter or spaces or all that kind of stuff. And just know that you're just trying to maximize as many things as possible, especially when it comes to X protocol. It is a development protocol, and transitioning into building more tools for Pulse Chain, more tools to implement different kind of utility factors for the things that the team and the community ultimately like at the end of the day.
Well, and the more things that get developed by X Protocol or worked with X Protocol means more opportunities on PulseChain. And with every project on PulseChain, it has its own team and its own community and its own outlets. They're all trying to onboard people onto PulseChain as well. So you want to root for those. But also, I know X Protocol, when it works with projects, is trying to enhance the incentives for the X holders. The biggest example is Surf. And Surf, with every volume, every trade that is happening, 0.5% of that is going towards buying of X and adding it to an LP pool forever. So that means now you have another artificial token buying up X. And I know you're working with other projects that we're hopefully going to help launch on PulseChain. Some of them are going to be buying and burning X with every trade volume. So you can see how throughout the course of a bull market, if X Protocol is working with 3 projects, 5 projects, 10 projects, 20 projects, are all of them going to be home runs? Are all of them going to onboard the masses to PulseChain? Maybe not, but they're all going to serve their purpose, and then indefinitely they're all going to be supporting and providing value to the X token itself. via buybacks and burns, LP ads, exposure, whatever it may be.
Yeah, and then talking about that too, it's like you say that point, but also here's some alpha guys. There's going to be a couple more updates that we have are building out in terms of just dApps and other useful tools for the people to incorporate different kind of strategies and stuff like that. So be patient, and those will be coming out soon. I'm not going to give a timetable or anything like that, but yeah, going back to the versus polls, you just look at the PTGC chart and just know it's like it's ready to go. Once it's going, once Ethereum, once the altcoin season actually happens, it's going to start moving fast. And that's one of the things that I try to educate and teach. And Nick, are you excited or what?
I'm excited. I wish it would get coming, because Richard Hart's like,
Yeah.
hey, 1 to 2 months. I'm waiting for the SEC on July 6th. I was wishing SEC would be done before the 4th, because then I could celebrate more on the 4th and brag about crypto and PulseChain to all the no coiners at all these July 4th events. But we'll see what's gonna go on. We're gonna push it, and I will say it might seem harder to recommend stuff to your friends and family when it's down because your dopamine level is down. But I'm telling you, now is the best time to onboard your friends and family, because the probability of you putting them in the green is much higher now than you trying to get them onboarded chasing green candles. Because inevitably what happens is green candles, you tell them about it, they're interested, but they're no coiners, so it takes them a month to figure it out. More green candles, they put in their first $1,000 to make a little bit of money, they're hyped, but more green candles are coming, so it takes them another month, and then they're buying with the bulk of their money near the highs, and that the little bit of correction in the downturn, they're going to be in your ear all upset about you. So it is much better to get your friends and I talk to somebody with experience, been doing this multi cycles. And I've got people in at the tops, I've got people out at the lows. When they buy the tops, even if it was their fault and they're late and they're the ones hitting the buy button, you got to listen to it all the way until the next cycle happens. So get people in now when PulseChain is at all-time lows, and you'll be loved for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I agree with that. And if you really think about it too, like the same kind of like conversation at the beginning of like PTGC and how I was like kind of like talking to my friends and family, and I was just like, just buy $100 and see what actually happens with that $100. And if you really think about it, that could have been life-changing money for a lot of people. Um, and just knowing those opportunities now, where we're at right now with Pulse, and where we're at now with like Surf, you can like identify like what could be the potential of like the onboarding and the outbound messaging in a positive light. And I like looking at this chart, Nick, like looking at the Surf chart, it just screens opportunity.
Yeah, and I
And it's
think
just,
and I think
go
why the
ahead.
surf chart is helpful to explain, because surf has been out less amount of time than PTGC or X. So there's some clear lessons on here, and it's easier for you to understand the bigger opportunity because there's really been only two blips on surf. So you see this blip here where we went from 800,000 down to 300,000. Well, this rally and blip right here is going to look like this once this cycle starts. This has happened on PTGC. This has happened on X. This is going to happen on PulseChain. This big correction or this sideways consolidation is going to look like this when you get to the next rally. When this inevitably goes to 10 million, 15 million, 20 million, this consolidation between 3 and 2 ends up looking like this. That is the opportunity that you guys are seeing. You might not be able to see it now, but I'm telling you that is what is going to happen on PulseChain with a lot of your favorite assets. Now, of course, we're biased towards PTGC and UFO and X and Surf. We think they're going to be big runners due to liquidity bonding, utility, token economics, and the ability for us to work with other projects to provide value back to our holders. But there's other projects that could be doing good on PulseChain. Top Hat with Crypto Coffee. Your Mom is a meme coin. Either one is Bear or Teddy. There's tons of options, but their charts are going to do very well when PulseChain kicks off this cycle. Another thing, we were showing the chart on PTGC and X, and you can see where it's came. But this one is really good to see too, just because, again, short period that it's been out, like 2 months or something. This blip, this right here is going to look like this when things get ripping and roaring. And for everybody that looks at charts on USD and you're like, oh, surf's down a little bit, what's going on? Do something. Look at the PLS pair. Even after a massive run up, people are up 100x right now, guys, plus passive income. it is still holding the levels, still staying on par around between 600 to 800 PLS per surf. So what do you think happens to this when the underlying network starts going? Or when X protocol and surf partner up to help a new team get ingratiated with PulseChain and that project is buying and burning the tokens. This is what I want people to see is we are in inning one of PulseChain. First cycle, all-time lows, Ethereum doing nothing. Once Ethereum goes to 5K, 10K, PulseChain does its 5X, 10X, 20X, and these protocols, whether it's Surf, PTGC, X, have another 1 month, 6 month, a year to build and provide more value, more utilities, more automatic buybacks and burns, more LP ads, more of the tokens have been burnt out of total supply, so they become deflationary. Their charts are going to continue in the same direction. The pictures are being painted on these charts while the underlying network is doing nothing. No new users are getting onboarded. What happens when that changes? Is it a guarantee? No, but it's something that I believe wholeheartedly. Yes.
Yeah. And you kind of like just broke it down and you kind of just said everything. It's just opportunity. And I just love where we're at right now when it comes to PulseChain, where we're at right now, where it comes to where my team and the people of the community here on Pulse is giving. Like for me, I like that positivity. I like the good vibes. I try to stay away from all the people talking negative. I listen to them. I listen and try to see their perspective. But if you just look in the bigger picture of where ETH and Bitcoin and even the S&P 500, and you look at the economy and then see the potential 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 1 year down the road, and just understand what's going to be your conviction, what's going to be your strategy, what is going to be your mindset going forward. And then once you hunker down and do those things and write them for yourselves, anything is going to be possible for your financial future. And yeah, I
Yeah, I
always just
mean,
want to say that.
yeah, right now it's not near as fun as when PTGC was going up 10% a day and Pulse Chain
Yeah.
was on its way to a 5X. Of course, dopamine, it's harder to get out of bed and stay motivated and stay convicted, but this is the opportunity, folks, and we're getting close. And I know we've been saying that for a long time, but there's been perks of good gains. And for all the blue chip people who have just ridden Pulse Chain all the way down to the right, you're still going to have your time of day as well. Richard Hart is still working for those blue chips. He's not working for the altcoins on chain. Yes, he wants network activity, but he's going to be working to pump the blue chips. So you'll have your day in the sun as well. For those of you who followed Crypto Paradise, myself, Coach X, GC Zen, and got in the altcoin opportunities on Pulse Chain, you've absolutely smashed it. I think you're going to continue to smash it. But again, we're rooting for the blue chips because the blue chips help pump our bags. The blue chips help secure value for the assets, the companies, and the protocols that we're working day in and day out on.
Yeah. And Nick, thank you for letting me come in. And I think just giving the perspective of individuals like yourself and myself working, grinding on a daily basis, giving out content, giving out educational like things when it comes to liquidity providing and giving knowledge to our not just our community, but outbound messaging and trying to go into different kind of communities to kind of like bridge the gap and bridge them on over the pole chain before the chaos, before the volatility, and before the opportunities of green candles presenting itself. So appreciate that, Nick.
Yep, I thought you were going to say before Valhalla. We're going there.
Bahatu.
Well,
No,
that's
no, no,
cool.
no.
We'll keep this short and sweet. One last question before we leave. What is your perspective on the overall market for Bitcoin and Ethereum? What do you think the timing is before Ethereum starts to turn the curve here? We're seeing companies buy, we're seeing ETF demand, but price is still floundering. What's going on there?
Well, I think it's I think they're trying to keep the price down for a reason. They're trying to get as many other institutions or corporations or states to start buying up especially the ETH price at these lows. And then once that happens and they give them the head nod to the Fed and they're going to lower interest rates, and then that's where the alt season and the Bitcoin dominance starts flipping around and gives these altcoins a little bit more opportunity in the next couple months.
Yeah, it's been so long, and all your favorite KOLs and influencers have been saying old season's coming, so people are starting to doubt it. And the fact that so many people are doubting it or wanting to dust their altcoins now and just getting Bitcoin tells me that it is going to happen sooner than later. We are very close. And my prediction about the Ethereum strategic reserve narrative is starting to play out. And this also confirms my bias that alt season is coming. There's no way that the Ethereum strategic reserve narrative is catching on. Institutional players are getting involved, and companies are starting to buy Ethereum instead of Bitcoin. And we don't see Ethereum price start moving. And then people are like, well, just because Ethereum moves doesn't mean altcoins move. Due to liquidity bonding, maybe retail isn't here to send every token 100x, but due to liquidity bonding, it spurs momentum for all the altcoins that have their LPs paired with Ethereum, which is like 80% of the altcoin market. So it is coming, folks. Hold on tight, get positioned, and of course, get into altcoins that pay you passive income, incentivize you, and are deflationary. I don't know, a couple come to mind. There's tons of them over on PulseChain, so I'll check that out. Until next time, guys, we will see you on the beach. Coach, go get a hole in one. It looks like you're about to go play some golf. I see the PTGC gear, so you'll be marketing even when you're relaxing. That's the name of the game, folks. Get out there, get your friends and family onboarded at these lows, and it'll be a lot easier to be a winner in their eyes rather than having them chase at the highs. Peace.